Hello and welcome to this edition of MLB This Week podcast. Yogi Berra passes away at 90. Jonathan Papelbon goes after Bryce Harper in the dugout. All this and much more as we bring you MLB This Week podcast. And hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week, MLB This Week. It's the podcast we like to bring to you every week, talking baseball. My name is Rich.
And I'm Gary.
And hello, Gary. You got a big reason to celebrate this week. I see you have your Mets gear on here as the Mets win the division in the NL East for 2015.
Rich, it was a great Saturday night, and what way to spend it, but sitting on the couch watching the Mets clinch, and I'm glad they clinched it with a victory, a solid victory over the Cincinnati Reds, and it's just amazing. It was kind of a surreal feeling for a while because it's been a while, and I'm old enough to be through 69 and 86 and 73 and 88 and 2000, but this was 2006, but this was different. This was just, it's hard to put into words. Just so exciting and just a happy time. And I ran right away to the local sporting goods store, the Modell's. It's a big chain across the Northeast, and picked up my hat and just celebrated with some Met fans that were there, and just a great evening and a great weekend.
Yeah, I could imagine. It's like an exhilaration runs through you when your team makes the playoffs. And I'm sure all Met fans everywhere are excited, ready for the postseason. We're going to have a lot of talk about the postseason tonight, including the Mets. But we're going to kick it off with a bit of sad news for baseball and a guy that's been around the game for many, many years.
Yes, Rich. This week, the baseball family lost a legend. Yogi Berra passed away at the age of 90. Of course, a Yankee great, and went on to coach and manage the New York Mets. Took them to a World Series in 1973. Took the Yankees to a couple of World Series, and just a remarkable human being and a remarkable ball player. One of the worst bad ball hitters of all time. I mean, this guy would hit his stuff over his head, and dangerous hitter, MVP. I don't know how many times. Just an incredible human being. He was at D-Day in the Navy and was shot at and received the Purple Heart during World War II, and just an incredible story. And I hope someday that somebody makes a very good movie out of his life, because the man just had a remarkable life. Haven't heard a bad word about him at all. And to give me an example, a story that was coming across the airwaves just a few days ago when he passed, and the story was about how teammates were so important to him. Phil Rizzuto, who of course was another Yankee great, MVP, Hall of Famer, passed away a number of years ago. But when he was ill, he started getting ill, he was put into an assisted living house in New Jersey. Of course, Yogi Berra lived in New Jersey, and it was about a half an hour from Yogi's house. And Yogi would go there every day and play cards with Phil. And if Phil happened to doze off, he'd sit there and wait, sometimes holding his hand. And then when Phil would fall asleep, and obviously he wasn't going to wake up for a while, that's when Yogi would leave. But every day he went to take care of and to spend time with his ex-teammate and his friend. And I think that just sums it all up about the kind of man that Yogi Berra was, beloved by Yankee fans and Met fans alike. And the baseball family really lost a great icon.
Yes, it did. And as you said, Yogi Berra has been in the game for many years. I remember him as a kid going up to see the Phillies versus the Mets. That was my dad's favorite two combination of teams. So we went up quite often in the early 70s. And I remember Berra very much like yesterday in a Mets manager's uniform. So, yeah, Berra is one of those guys that the old school type of player and manager. And as you said, we missed a great with the passing of Yogi Berra. He was an MVP for 3 times, and he has a lot of awards to his name. He finished second twice in MVP voting in his career. He did win the MVP in 51, 54, and 55. Numerous All-Star games. I'm looking at his baseball reference page here. There's probably about, if I had to guess, maybe 16 games that he appeared in All-Star games all throughout his career, beginning in 1948 and running through 1962, when they used to play 2 All-Star games in a year. But yeah, besides the great numbers that he put up in the game and his service to the military, as you mentioned, Gary, just an overall good guy. Awesome numbers that he produced during his career, and it's just hard to lose a guy like that in this game.
And you know, Rich, when you think about it, the players that he played with, Mantle, Maris, Gil McDougall, Bill Skowron, I mean, some of the classic players of all time, DiMaggio. It's just an amazing career he had. And he was, a lot of those times, he was considered the most dangerous hitter in that lineup. So, really a bad week for baseball in that aspect, that they've lost a great Hall of Famer and just a terrific human being.
Yes, indeed. And of course, one thing that he's well known for is Yogi-isms. That is some quotes that he's said over the years, and a couple of them here from the internet. When you come to a fork in the road, take it. That's one. You can observe a lot by just watching is another one. And of course,
other people's funerals, so they'll go to yours.
I never heard that one, but here's a couple funny ones. It's like deja vu all over again, and no one goes there nowadays. It's too crowded. So I don't know. A nickel ain't worth a dime anymore is what supposedly he is attributed to saying. So,
and hitting is 50% physical and 90% mental. Or flip it,
something like that. That would be a Yogi-ism.
And of course, the famous one that he said in 1973, when asked if the Mets still had a chance to win, and he says it ain't over till it's over. So, Yogi, we're gonna miss you.
Yep, and those immortal words there. He was even nominated by over 300,000 people for a Medal of Freedom award. In the last 6 to 8 months. That was started back in March, I believe, as a grassroots attempt to get Yogi honored at the White House. It never quite got passed. Maybe it will now that he's passed away, but it couldn't get done sooner. It's a shame that it didn't get done sooner, because I think he's an ideal candidate for something like that. But over 300,000 signatures were obtained and brought to the White House for this Medal of Freedom honor, and maybe we'll see it in 2016.
Let's hope so. And you know, Rich, he was quite a businessman as well. Everything he touched seemed to turn to gold. He had racquetball courts in the 70s when when that boom, if you remember how that boomed all of a sudden, everybody's playing racquetball. And he was right in the beginning of that. And also, he used to enjoy this chocolate drink called Yoo-Hoo. I don't know if it was if you had Yoo-Hoo down where you are, but the Yoo-Hoo was kind of a regional drink, I believe, a chocolate flavored drink. It's probably gone national now, but I remember as a kid, Yogi would be on the cap of the bottle, and they would be Yogi, picture Yogi, and they came to Yogi and they said that they wanted to pay him to do commercials, and he says, "I don't want to get paid, but give me a part of the company." And of course, the company boomed with Yogi as their spokesman, and you would always see Yoo-Hoo Vice President Yogi Berra, and so everything he seemed to touch, he did very good with, and as we've been saying, just a big loss for the baseball family.
Yes, indeed. One of my favorite drinks growing up, the Yoo-Hoo. For our listeners, I hope you've had the chance to have one, and I think you're right, Gary. It's still for sale. What a great drink that was, Yoo-Hoo.
Yep, certainly was.
Well, another bit of news around the majors today, and sometimes we don't choose our stories till right before we do the show, and that was a good thing today, Gary, because in the late afternoon on the day we're doing this podcast, there was a scuffle in the Washington Nationals dugout after Bryce Harper hit a fairly innocent fly ball to left field. He began to jog towards first half-heartedly, and no one other than Mr. Jonathan Papelbon was watching him from the dugout. Now, Papelbon had just blown a save for the Nationals, so he wasn't very happy to begin with, but he started jawing at Harper, and the two exchanged words. By the time Harper made it down to the bottom of the dugout, it was quite a heated discussion between the two players, and it seemed like Papelbon was not dropping the matter. He turned around and faced Harper, who then probably told him to mind his business or something like that. Papelbon lunged at him with a open fist and grabbed his throat and pushed him into the dugout wall before being subdued by many other Washington National players this afternoon. A very shocking happening here. Even the Washington National announcers didn't realize it until after they saw the replay. Certain replays were played that didn't show the whole event until after. But just emotions flowing over there in the Washington National dugout. After the game, Bryce Harper was quoted as saying they're just like brothers going after one another, but that was a serious brother going after the potential MVP candidate, Bryce Harper, this afternoon.
Certainly was, and there's a lot of problems with that team. I wouldn't be surprised for as good as the lineup that they have that they blow that whole thing up, because there's some definite problems. I can picture Matt Williams being fired after the last day of the season, from manager of the year to out the door in 1 year. Pretty incredible. But there's just something lacking with that team that there's not a good chemistry there, and I think we've seen it over the last few years. Yes, they won the division last year, but they were eliminated very quickly in the playoffs. And even though it's very important, you can't win the World Series unless you win your division or get in the wild card. So they managed that, but there is something lacking with that team, and I don't know if it's chemistry, if it's leadership, or what. But Bryce Harper's not very well liked in New York here. They think he's a crybaby, but he could play for my team any day. I think he's got the most class on that team, to be honest with you. I think he's honest, and he's never really said coming from a Mets point of view, he's never really said anything bad about the Mets. He just said that we like to beat them, and that's understandable. And he was one of the first to congratulate the Mets and said that he hopes they win the World Series because they're in his division. So, Papelbon, don't you have more of a history with him than I do? coming from Philadelphia, but really don't have a lot of respect for him, and I'm not surprised that he would pull this kind of stunt.
Well, in just a few short seasons, Jonathan Papelbon became the most winningest saves in the Phillies organization. So he definitely accomplished what they brought him there for, and that was to save ball games. But in the process, he's got his own weirdness to him that he brings to a team. He does like to win, but he's his own sort of army, so to speak, at times. He goes against fans. He goes against other players. It becomes very disrupting to a ball club, I guess you could say. And what he did today, I can't see him remaining with the Washington Nationals. I don't blame Matt Williams as much as I would Jonathan Papelbon. And after the game, Papelbon said, quote, "I'm in the wrong there. For me, I can't allow that to happen in the middle of a game. You have to handle that after the games or allow the manager to handle that. So in light of that, I'm wrong." Of course he's wrong. He's also under suspension and appeal of that suspension by the MLB for throwing at a player a couple games ago. So here you got double. And I think the best thing for the MLB to do at this point would be to just suspend him for the rest of the season and maybe into 2016, because it's going to send him a message that he just can't do these type of things. And it was totally uncalled for. Whether or not he was upset that he had just blown the game or watching Harper run out a fly ball half-heartedly, doesn't deserve to do that in front of his own teammates or the fans and embarrass the game on top of that.
And, Rich, nowadays a lot of these guys don't run out stuff. And Harper's a guy that's going full speed most of the time. He's ran into walls and got injured and stuff. So if he wants to, it's a long season. If he takes a break and doesn't run it out that hard once in a while, you know what? Sometimes you have to overlook that kind of stuff when you're talking about an MVP who plays hard as a rule. And Papelbon's got, to me, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's got a big mouth, and sometimes he's got to keep it shut. He's new on that team. And right away, you don't go after the potential MVP of the National League.
Exactly. And if the two wasn't separated, I think we'd be talking more about a major issue here. I think it was to their credit that they grabbed Papelbon. It looked like they needed 5 people to hold him down, as Bryce Harper just sort of walked away from the whole situation, and nobody needed to restrain him. So in the end, we'll see what happens with Papelbon. Williams, I can't blame him. He can't be down there officiating fights between his players. He's got some potential time bombs on that team. This past year prior, Bryce Harper was voted most overrated by the players. Now, I think he showed them a thing or two this year with his MVP candidacy. I don't see anybody taking that from him this year.
Well, yeah, the numbers are there. I mean, you could make a case perhaps for Yoenis Cespedes, but his late arrival in the National League will be against him. So I don't think he would really be a strong enough candidate. But it's just they're a team in trouble and a franchise in trouble, and I think this is just another extension of it.
Yes, indeed. So the Washington Nationals obviously in need of something. They've been picked the last couple of years to do well. Come up short this year, but we'll have to see next year with them. They'll still probably be pretty well intact with that team. So, but we have another bit of news here, Gary, on another team that clinched a division in the past couple days.
Yeah, the defending American League champions, Kansas City Royals, who, if you remember, got in last year as the wild card. They clinched in the American League Central with a 10-4 victory over the Seattle Mariners. It's the first division title for the Royals since winning the AL West in 1985, on their way to their lone World Series title. It's the seventh division title in franchise history for Kansas City. And, of course, they'll start against an American League Division Series opponent on Thursday, October 8th. And, of course, the other team, as we've mentioned before, the New York Mets, they beat the Washington Nationals, beat them when they had to beat them, and swept them 7 games in a row. And that really propelled them in the first place, and they clinched the National League East yesterday evening, early evening, ensuring their first postseason berth since 2006. And congratulations to the Royals and the New York Mets.
Absolutely. And it hasn't been, as you said, Gary, since 1985 that the Kansas City Royals have won their division. Of course, they came back from nowhere to make it deep into the playoffs last year, into the World Series even. So that's a great tip to their cap. I don't think many people expected them to do that well this year, and they came out of nowhere and took that division there. So as we said before, the postseason is like a new season. All the teams are starting out even. They got to win, of course, and it's just an electric type of atmosphere. So I'm looking forward to some great games coming up in only a week and a half, 2 weeks from now, Gary. How about you?
Yes, me too. And, Rich, sometimes I think that the division is more important than anything else because, as I said earlier, to get into the playoffs, you got to win your division or a wild card. And the division champion is really based on the 162 game season. It's a slog. It's a marathon. And the guy that comes out on top has really done something special. And that's why I think sometimes if you win a division, you shouldn't hang your head if you get knocked out in the playoffs. It's something to be celebrated and something to consider. We all want to win the world championship. Everybody knows that. But only one team gets there. And as you say, Rich, once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. Last year we had 2 wild card teams in, and San Francisco and Kansas City faced off in the World Series. San Francisco won on the back of Madison Bumgarner. So you never know, but you have to win to get there in the first place, and that's what these 2 organizations did so far. And there's still some great races going on, Rich. This is going to be some last week of baseball, and once again, it just shows you how great this game really is.
Yes, indeed. The Toronto Blue Jays have not clinched yet in the American League East. They're going to clinch any day now. The Texas Rangers out west have not officially clinched that division. And the LA Dodgers still have to clinch, although everybody believes it's a foregone conclusion on all 3 of those teams. But it's going to be interesting to see the Cubs and the Pirates in the playoffs this year, if only for one game for both teams. It's going to be very interesting to see them.
Well, and Rich, the interesting thing about that whole thing is the Pirates still got a shot at the division because they're only 2.5 games behind St. Louis, and they're playing tonight. And so if they can beat the Cubs tonight, they'll be within 2 games of the division. So that's going to come down to it. And how odd is that the 2 best records are still fighting it out in the division, and the other divisions will be settled. And we know the Mets will be playing the Dodgers. The only thing that's unsettled is where those games will be, who is going to be the home field advantage. Right now, the Mets have a half a game lead over the Dodgers for the home field. And so there's still something to play for, even for the teams that are, that have clinched, including Kansas City, because they're playing for the home field. They're tied with Toronto as of now for the most wins in the American League. So, and they'll be playing the winner of the wild card game. And who is that? Who's going to be in that wild card? We don't know. It looks like it's going to be the Yankees, but is it going to be Houston? Is it going to be the Angels? Very exciting stuff coming down. Lots of questions coming down. More in the American League than the National League, but lots of things to be settled this week.
Yeah, and as you said, the Pittsburgh Pirates could win tonight and help themselves. But guess who the St. Louis Cardinals play on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday? None other than the Pittsburgh Pirates. So a couple of those games will be on ESPN stations. Huge games coming up Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday in Pittsburgh with the St. Louis Cardinals and the Pittsburgh Pirates going at it. And I don't think they could have planned that any better in the schedule.
What an enormous 3 games that's going to be. And, of course, 3 games with the Cubs and the Pirates this week. So this weekend. So really quite an outstanding placement of games. And it's just going to be a terrific week. And everybody's still playing for a little something. So it's just going to be great.
Yep. And, of course, we'll know more on our next show here on MLB This Week podcast, your weekly show. We're an independent show, and we have our own website at MLBThisWeek.com. Check out all of our video podcasts there. We do this show also on audio, so you can subscribe to us on iTunes, on Stitcher Radio. Go right up to our Podomatic.com site, and also Baseball Talk Radio, where we just had a redesign there, Gary.
Yeah, great new look on the website, Rich. You did a fantastic job on that. A great new logo, as you can see here. Maybe sometimes it's hard to see with the glare, but it's growing and it's a great site to get any team or most of the teams. We're still working on that, Rich. Right? Still working on getting all of the teams, but boy, there's a whole lot of baseball on that network, and I'm just honored to be on it with you. And go check it out, baseballtalkradio.com, the home of great baseball talk shows, and there's from all over the country: Dodgers, Giants, Brewers, the Mets,
some Japanese baseball, in fact.
Fantasy baseball too. So and the baseball PhD is on there too. So go check it out, baseballtalkradio.com.
The home of great baseball talk shows, and it's my pleasure to bring those shows to you. We also have a 24/7 radio stream where you can stream that on the TuneIn app on your smartphone or tablet. You can take us along for the ride in your car, stream it right to your stereo on the road, and listen all over the place. So ton of baseball talk out there, and I'm sure those shows will get real exciting as the playoffs begin here in just about a week or so. Gary, our next topic up here for discussion is the 2015 MLB batting leaders. And I think after we hear this list, we're going to agree that Mr. Harper is your MVP candidate. And this list coming from Baseball Reference. If you're watching the video, that's where I'm taking it from. As of yesterday, the wins above replacement category, 10.3, and that's Mr. Bryce Harper in the lead. WAR position player, also 10.3, Bryce Harper. Wins above replacement, that stands for offensive WAR. Leader, Bryce Harper, 9.1. Defensive WAR, Tampa Bay team player has that one. Kiermaier is his name. Batting average, it's Bryce Harper at 339 as of yesterday. Washington Nationals. On base percentage, Bryce Harper again, .470. Slugging percentage, again, Bryce Harper, Washington Nationals, .663. On base plus slugging, Bryce Harper, 1.133. And there you go. He owns about 6 of the 8 top positions there in all these sabermetric stats, Gary.
Yeah, he's just having a remarkable year. 41 home runs, 96 RBIs, 336. He's hitting who else is near him even at this point? I mean, he's just got a great season going on, and he deserves to be the MVP.
Yeah, here's another interesting stat here. At bats per home run. Harper leads that with 12.2 bats per every home run. So we love to hear that. Successful. As you said, Cespedes over there in New York, a nice candidate. He really energized that team. There's a couple others as well mentioned for MVP, but I think it's pretty clear there Harper is going to get that award.
Yeah, the only thing I could see, Rich, is that if they have a backlash because they didn't win, that would be the only thing, the only reason I could see where he would have a problem. But other than that, I don't really see a problem at all with him winning it. But you never know, and we'll see what happens. But as you said, the numbers are so stunning in his favor that and he's defensively, he's in there every inning. He's playing the outfield. It's not like that other league where he gets time off because he's a DH. No, he's out there all the time. So I haven't got a problem with him being the MVP.
Sounds good to me. Well, the Pope was in Philadelphia today. He was up in New York this past week. Did he bring any luck to the Mets while he was up there in New York?
Yes, I believe he did. There are pictures on Facebook. I don't know if it's sacrilegious or whatever, but they got Pope with the Mets jersey on. Somebody superimposed a Mets hat on his head. So I don't know, but it was a great week for New York, and I think they were kind of glad the Mets to probably get out of the area because of the I don't want to say a mess, but it does create a lot of problems when you have a dignitary of that level come in to a town. As you well know, I was watching a little bit of the coverage today from Philadelphia and didn't realize that they were making people park in Camden, New Jersey, and then they had to walk. And they said it was like 5 miles you had to walk across the Ben Franklin Bridge to get into Philly. And then you had to stand for 10 hours and then walk back. That's a little nuts.
Yeah, they did have trains running as well over the Ben Franklin Bridge, which is one of 2 major bridges in Philadelphia, but they had that closed, as well as a numerous number of streets around that area. But yes, you could take the train in if you wanted to. A lot of people just decided to walk, and that's about a mile walk just on the bridge, Gary, if you were going to undertake that. So people got healthy along the way there. And then, of course, once you got there, you had a couple-hour wait to get through the security lines, and then a couple more hours to wait for the whole festivities to begin. But like I said, I think he brought the Phillies some luck. They ended up with a win today. And the Eagles won over the New York Jets as well. So little luck there might have done it.
Could be. Could be, Rich.
Well, on this date in baseball is one of our regular features we're trying to bring to our listeners. And Gary, this day here, 1930, Hack Wilson hit 2 home runs for the Chicago Cubs, giving him an NL record of 56 for the season. And that's way before I think anybody ever heard of steroids.
Oh, yeah, long before that. But Hack Wilson was a great player for the Cubbies, and he could hit. Certainly could hit.
Yes, he could. And on this date in 1993, Randy Myers became the first National League reliever with 50 saves in a season as the Chicago Cubs beat the LA Angels 7-3 on that. Actually, the Dodgers, they beat 7-3. So Randy Myers there, first reliever with 50 saves in a season back in 1993. And in 1998, Mark McGwire gave baseball a new magic number hitting 2 home runs in one game to reach number 70 on the season for the St. Louis Cardinals in their season finale against the Montreal Expos. Of course, McGwire now not getting too much credit as he was implicated in the steroid scandal there, Gary, but it was great to bring some of the fans back. As we've talked about many times on the show, people were talking about the baseballs being juiced, the bats having cork in them. Nobody would have guessed that it was something more sinister.
Well, Bobby Valentine came out this week with an article, or he was featured in an article in which he said he can foresee the time where steroids become a part of the game, and that they are legal for injuries, and how they would police that. I don't know. I could see it myself. I don't have a problem if you can cut a player's recovery time from an injury and get him back on the field where the fans can see him healthy. I don't have a problem with it, but the policing of it by Major League Baseball, I don't know how they would accomplish that. In a way, he said, what, this is a discussion we've had. What isn't a performance-enhancing drug? I mean, to a certain extent, Tommy John surgery is performance-enhancing. A knee surgery is performance-enhancing because you're repairing damage that hinders your performance. And he just thinks in limited abilities and limited quantities and that the steroids will eventually become part of the game. And I can see it happening, too.
Well, that would be a stretch because you have so many different steroids and things like that and chemicals that come into play. So it would be kind of hard to enforce that, so to speak. So for now, we'll just have to see how it goes with the rules that they have in play. But it'd be interesting to see what happens in the future for sure. A couple of birthdays here. Players born on the date we're doing this show, September 27th. Hall of Famer Mike Schmidt was born in 1949. Couple names we may know from this list. 52 total baseball players born on this day. John Lannon, an ex-Washington National, Phillies player, and also with the Mets. He's born on 1984 on this date. And also Vicente Padilla played with about 5 teams, Phillies being one of them, the Dodgers, Boston Red Sox. Ton of birthdays on this date. A few other names we may not recognize, so I won't go into them. But happy birthday to those players for sure.
Happy birthday to all of those guys.
And one day we'll get some music to roll in the background of that when we get some more production notes here. But we have a retirement to speak of at the end of the season, and guy I thought was already retired. Haven't heard from him in years.
Well, Rich, of course, you're talking about the Padres announcer, Dick Enberg, and he's been the play-by-play man there for some time, and he's not going to retire at the end of this year. He will retire at the end of next year. He announced on Wednesday. He is 80 years old, and he's been in sports broadcasting for how many years? He's going to stay through next year because it is an all-star game year for San Diego. So he's going to stay, but he will next year it will be his last as the primary play-by-play announcer for the Padres. In July of this year, Enberg, as I said, age 80, was given the National Baseball Hall of Fame's 2015 Fort C. Frick Award for Broadcasting Excellence, so he is a Hall of Famer. He's also a member of the National Sports Broadcasting Hall of Fame and the National Sportscaster and Sports Writers Hall of Fame. And so Dick Enberg, who's been around, we even remember from the 70s, Rich, as a game show host. So he's been around. He's done a little bit of everything and been around baseball, football, basketball. He's done it all for over 60 years, and he will retire after next season. And, of course, already the rumors of who's going to replace him is coming around, And one name that's popped up is Don Orsillo, who was being kicked out by the Boston Red Sox after this season. And he's being pursued aggressively by the Padres, according to a Boston Globe report. NESN, which is the cable station of the New England Sports Network, announced that they would be replacing Orsillo at the end of the season after a 15-year run with the team. And it met with quite a bit of, let's say, hostility from the Red Sox fans because he's well-liked, Orsillo. But he is going to be out, and he could be in as the next announcer. They'll break him in maybe next year slowly and eventually take over after Enberg retires. So he could end up with a nice job in definitely nicer weather than the New England area. But he's also being pursued by the Dodgers and ESPN. So we'll see what happens with Mr. Orsillo as he could be taking over for Dick Enberg, who's going to retire.
Very interesting. We'll have two big retirements next year with Dick Enberg and also the Dodgers voice, the great Vin Scully, saying he's only going to do this for one more year. And as you said, it's kind of hard to lose your job as an announcer, Gary. I wonder what Orsillo did to get out of Boston.
I don't really know. They never really said. They just said that they were cutting ties with him after this season, and it met with quite an uproar. He was very popular, and everybody thought he did a terrific job. And, it's one of those things. Maybe he got too expensive and his contract was up and they didn't want to pay him.
Yeah, it could be. A former Met announcer and now Phillies announcer, actually, Tom McCarthy has taken the last few weeks off. He also does football, so he's taken every weekend off for the past 3 weekends. So a lot of Phillies fans are wondering what happened to Tom McCarthy from Friday to Sunday. And the answer is he does NFL games in college during the weekend. So it's almost like the Phillies are a part-time job for him.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a shame, too. I mean, it's in his contract, I'm sure. But, sometimes you can designate which is more important. And, for instance, the Mets radio announcer, Howie Rose, also does the games for the New York Islanders and the hockey team, and he's going to have a conundrum because their opening night, I believe, is the same as the Mets opening against the Dodgers in the playoffs. So Howie will have a decision to make, but I'm not sure how his contract reads. His contract may supersede that the Mets supersede everything. So,
yes, especially if they make the playoffs, for sure.
Well, sure, without a doubt. I'd rather be doing a playoff game than the Islanders hockey game. No offense to the Islander fans out there, but the Brooklyn Islanders. So we'll see what happens there, but it's a funny thing.
Yes, it is. Well, I'm feeling a little blessed by the Pope after his visit to the Philadelphia area. But you have a story, Gary, about breaking a curse.
Well, Rich, you look a little like Mike Trout there for a second.
With my Angels halo.
Your Angels halo. Well, Rich, the Cubbies have the curse of the goat on them. And they're in contention this year for the wild card, the second wild card. And 2 Chicago restaurant owners who are also competitive eaters, along with 3 friends from the competitive eating circuit, made their best effort on Tuesday to break the curse by eating a 40-pound goat. Around 75 fans were there to cheer the 5 men on. It was awesome. I wanted some of it, said Alice Chu, a co-owner of Taco in a Bag, the Northside restaurant, where the eating took place. The Cubs have not won a World Series since 1908, haven't won a National League pennant since 1945 when they lost to the Detroit Tigers in 7 games. And, of course, the alleged curse was placed on the Cubs when a Chicago bar owner tried to bring his goat into Wrigley Field for Game 4 of the World Series, but was denied. The man allegedly swore the Cubs would never win a championship again, and the rest is history.
And what a crazy history that's been for the Cubs. So glad to see them in the playoffs. Do you know, Gary, that they were 50-1 to win the World Series after October of last year, and then after hiring Joe Madden and getting some great players together, they went down to 12-1 to win it all. And it remains to be seen. Can they break that long curse? Will it be over for the Cubs, and maybe they can move on? We'll have to see. Their first hurdle comes in a wild card game, and of course tonight they're on Sunday Night Baseball against the Pirates. So a great time to be a Cubby fan. If you're listening out there, Cubs fan, it's just a great time for them as well.
It certainly is, but we all know the Mets are going to win it this year, so Cubs are not going to get there.
And that's the exciting part of the season. The playoffs is, in fact, its own season. You can wipe clean everything that happened in 2015 during the regular season. The playoffs take on a life of their own. And as I've said on the last couple podcasts, if you like a team and they're in the playoffs, do what you can to get to a game, get to the stadium. It's like electric running through your veins. The television people work up the crowd first off before the game even starts, but I don't think they need a whole lot to work up in some of these stadiums because those fans are absolutely pumped to see their team. So won't be long now, just another week or so, and we'll be talking about the opening playoff games with you. And Gary, just another great show, and we're already looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, and we'll probably be doing a review of the whole playoffs next week, Rich.
Yes, we will. So stay tuned to that. Check us out on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Baseball Talk Radio. Circle us on Google+. Follow us on Twitter at MLBThisWeek. And Gary, you have a great week, and I'll talk to you next show.
You to do the same, Rich, and I'll see you then.